Welcome, everybody. You are listening to the Startup Secret for Entrepreneurs, and I'm your host, Shelby Oleschlager. Our mission here is to help entrepreneurs make a difference and navigate the messy world of startup or relaunch. Join me today as we dig deep with our guests to give you the best concepts and strategies to fast track your business. Today, we have Petra Zink with us, who I'm very excited to chat with to talk about her business and where she came from and where she is right now. So Petra, thank you for joining us, first of all. And just to give us listeners a little bit of backstory of what you do.
Thanks so much, Shelby, for having me. I'm excited about this conversation because I think often the world of entrepreneurship is glorified and people have a very romantic idea about what it takes to start and run a business. The reality looks quite different, to say the least. Now, as you said, my name is Petra Zink. I'm the founder of impaCCCT with CCC and also the 360 Talent Co. I've been running impaCCCT for the last 5 years, and the 360 Talent Co is turning 3.5. Both businesses are designed to help individuals and companies to future-proof themselves by building strong personal brands.
Wow, yeah. That's awesome. So can you tell us a little bit of how this came about? What drew you to this type of work?
Absolutely. Now, to be honest, I never wanted to run my own business. I come from an entrepreneur's family. Like literally every single person is an entrepreneur in my family. And I experienced from an early age the ups and the downs. Had a lot of money, couldn't even pay the groceries, went overseas, struggled, and I hated it. I thought I go into a cushy job where I've got my 5 weeks annual leave and have my health insurance and I don't have to worry about it. And I did that for the first 10 years of my career. And I always felt the odd one. Like I always had ideas and management usually said, oh, that's great, but we don't do it. And I just got frustrated with it. Anyway, I was, very hardworking, growing up in the old-fashioned entrepreneurial world where you have to work 20 hours a day, otherwise you're not worth your money. And I worked my way up in the corporate ladder. And I didn't realize that I forgot to build a network. I forgot to promote and market myself because I thought my hard work will speak for itself. And at the early stages, it does. However, if you reach a certain senior level, it's not about what you can do, but what you enable others to do. And at that stage, I didn't have a mentor, I didn't have a coach, I didn't have a proper leader either who would actually show me that my perception about myself, my work, my contribution was quite different to senior management. So when I got pulled into my manager's office on a Friday morning, I expected the next promotion to get to the marketing director role. And they said, we put you in a performance improvement plan. And I thought, excuse me? Like I'm the one first in, last out. I'm the one who's outworking everyone. I'm the one who's taking on the responsibilities. And I said, yes, then we see that. However, in your role, and at that stage I was looking after 18 boards, your role is to communicate, to influence, to enable others doing the doing, whereas you don't have that level of leadership that we need you to have. And it completely bruised my ego, to be fair. I got out of the industry and got into recruitment. And every agency by then when I applied obviously rejected me because I didn't have the experience. And the most common rejection was, we like you, but you don't have the sales experience and we also don't think we can teach you. Long story short, through a personal connection, I got into the very last agency here in Brisbane, Australia. And they said, you know what, we see something in you. And we also see that there is potential in digital, but we're not quite sure what it actually is. So you have to start building your own desk, your own practice. We don't have a candidate, we don't have a client, but you need to build within the first 3 months, otherwise you're out. That's company policy. And at that stage, I think I didn't have plan B. I also got divorced at the same month. So I thought I need to make it work. And I think from that moment onward, my entrepreneurial spirit was evoked. And very long story short, what I realized interviewing hundreds of digital and tech candidates who are very smart, very driven, had all the credentials, they missed out on opportunities. They didn't get promoted. They didn't often get invited to an interview simply because they couldn't communicate their value. They couldn't articulate why somebody should choose them over somebody else. And this is where I thought, well, what if there is a way how I can help them to clarify what they're all about, what's their competitive advantage, so that they can communicate it and then you can commercialize it in one or another way. It may be to get onto a board. It may be to get into the C-suite. It may be to set up their own business. And this is how I discovered personal branding, and impact was born. This is why the triple C are in the word impact.
That's awesome. So it really just came from your own experience of having to go through it and to realize this missing gap. So within you figuring this out, what were some of the main things that you realized that are really important for us with creating our personal brand and showing up in that way?
Well, the biggest realization was that it's not just me, because I'm such an awkward introvert, I always say, and I didn't know how to talk about my work and myself without sounding douchey or too full of myself in a negative way. And realizing, talking to so many very smart professionals, that they suffer from the same challenge, I thought there must be something that I can develop that works with others also. Having said that, often when you see something so clear, and even you can articulate in your head so clearly, and then you talk to somebody and they just look at you, I have no idea what you're talking about. And it's like, oh, dang. So, refining your message, making sense out of the change and the results that you can provide is probably one of the biggest skill sets that everyone needs to learn. Because nowadays, with more access to technology and also to a global talent pool, simply having another degree here and 5 more years experience there and an award there, that's become a commodity. Everyone's kind of got it. So the only way to stand out is to be able to brand yourself, to be positioned in a way that you want to be seen as, and then to market and sell yourself in the right way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm sure people realize that how important, like you just said, how important that really is, because you can get all the certificates, but if you don't have that ability to show up in that way that you should, then yeah, you're just not going to get ahead. You mentioned something just about leadership. I'd like to kind of touch on that, of how important you think that is and what that kind of means for you with your work of being the leader.
Well, I think everyone needs to define leadership for themselves, because growing up in a very traditional corporate setting, you work your way up, and leadership means you have a team underneath you. I had a small team in marketing, but when I got into recruitment, I built big teams fairly quickly because I was successful. So I had to build more, capabilities within my practice. And in the end, I had 16 team members underneath me, and I hated it. I was stuck in meetings all day, every day. I couldn't actually do what I was the best at. And I thought when I left the corporate world, I'd never want to have a big team again. It just exhausts me. I'm really good when I can lead with thoughts, with content, with different ideas. This is where my sweet spot is. So I would consider myself more as a thought leader rather than a people leader. And I know there are incredible personalities who are more suited to lead people. But I would say everyone needs to define what leadership means for them. It could also mean to lead projects, for example, to lead change. To lead people is one aspect, or to lead with thoughts and content and ideas. So finding your sweet spot, knowing where you can contribute not just the most, but the best of you, this is what it's all about.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And it makes me also think, like, so you wrote a book that's called Trusted Authority. Is this something you talk about? And can you just tell us a little bit about creating this book and what is involved with it?
Absolutely. Now, it turned out to be a Bible. It is so freaking thick.
That's okay.
The reason why I wrote this is that I've seen the change of technology in the workforce, and at the same time, the rise of the gig economy and the freelance economy. So simply getting a degree, working your way up, retiring eventually doesn't cut it anymore. How can you stand out, especially when there's always somebody who can do whatever you do faster, cheaper, with more experience, with more credentials? You cannot ever compete on that. However, you can compete with your story, with your experience, and by consistently showing up and sharing your knowledge. And this is what trust is all about. And I always say it's trusted authority because people choose to follow you. They buy into your ideas and not by title, because not everyone wants to progress in their career and eventually have the partner or the managing director title. And at the same time, hierarchies in corporations are getting flatter. So we can't necessarily rely on getting to this next stage. So how can you still influence? How can you still create impact It's because people want to buy into your ideas. So whether you want to start up your own business and you need to get investors on board, you need to be trusted that your idea, that your personality gets them to success. If you want to get onto a board, you again need to be trusted that you can bring in the capabilities. And the core concept of trusted authority is, how can you connect two worlds? In this very competitive, very noisy, very crowded marketplace, simply saying, I'm the specialist in leadership doesn't cut it, because what does it even mean? However, how we can actually stand out very easily, and we don't have to be loud, we don't have to be on TikTok and dance all day, every day, is by connecting a world that's relevant to you and coming back from your background, from your personality and your profession. So it might be, and when I give you a couple of examples, then you will see it everywhere. Mm-hmm. Authorities in their space are, say, Brené Brown. Yeah. She is known as the leader in vulnerability and shame and storytelling. Did she start there? No. She is an academic. She has had a really fantastic and successful career in academia, and she could have stopped there. She has done research, plenty of that. But what she has done, she has translated her very clinical insights and academic language into the business world. How can leaders use and leverage her knowledge, her findings into their settings, into their commercial settings, and also use the language that business leaders would use rather than psychologists would use? So she has become the translator of her knowledge to an audience that's relevant for her, but also that benefits from her expertise. Jamie Oliver, what has he done? He was actually a chef in high-end cuisine, and it could have been his career path, but it didn't. His personality is all about family, being hands down, down to earth, very hands-on. So he's connected high-end luxury cuisine with everyday family cooking. And you can see it in every single detail. He doesn't wear the fancy chef hat, even though he would have the qualification. He wears the checkered shirts and even licks his fingers and gets in there, because this is what we do as a family when we cook. And this is how he could create his own niche. And this is what every single one of us can do. It may be that you bring a different personality to an industry that isn't quite familiar with that. One of my clients, a financial advisor, when we think of financial advisor, what do we think?
Yeah, like
boring, a bit, quite stale. It's our preconception. Now he's the opposite. He's pink, he's bright, he's loud, very different. Now he attracts a certain audience, but also repels a different audience who want to have the corporate, very professional, very strict personality, and that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also just makes me think of that you have to be like talking about Brené Brown, like just vulnerable with showing up as your true self and knowing that if you take that path, you're going to attract the ideal clients, and you're also going to push away the not so ideal clients. So with your work specifically, what would you describe as your ideal client?
Anyone who's got a lot of expertise and knowledge, but they're not quite sure how that can impact their community or their industry. Mm-hmm. So how can we turn credentials into a message? Mm. Meaning when somebody's got, is specialized in website design, that's great, but what does it even mean? When we say we can support businesses to get the best out of them, identify where clients are coming from, and create a life around their area of expertise. Now, this has a lot more impact on it, but it's often that we as a technician, whatever that profession may be, is that we are not able to see the bigger impact that we can make with our knowledge, with our experience and expertise. So how can we package that and also systemize a knowledge? Because I'm a big fan of building multiple income streams, especially in the entrepreneurial world. You never know where your next paycheck comes from, because we don't have a paycheck. So diversifying your income, leveraging your IP in different ways is my absolute favorite topic to think about, to do, to teach, because that gives us more control, more flexibility, and also more security. So for example, with my book, yes, it's one income stream, but I'm not relying on that. And it's also brand new. It just came on top of the others. But I do one-on-one coaching. I have online courses. I've got group coaching sessions. I teach that for companies and their teams. I do keynotes around that. So that's already 6 income streams that I can push and pull as much as I want to. And this is, when we as an entrepreneur have the flexibility and the control over how we can monetize our expertise, this is what gives us so much more white space also to think what's ahead. And we can tap into different audiences, because not everyone can afford my one-on-one coaching, and it's also not for every single person the right option, but they can do a do-it-yourself version of that, or they can read the book, or they can attend a workshop. So giving people multiple opportunities to get to know you, to get to trust you, and then to also continue working with you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It makes so much sense. And giving yourself that ability and that freedom where you're not necessarily just working on your job, you're like able to, like you said, push and pull. I really like that analogy of you can decide here and there, like where you want to do like a speaking event or this or that. So you just mentioned it allows you to look to what's ahead, like what's in the future. So with your work and your business, what do you have? Like, do you have your goals for your next 12 months, what you see for yourself, and what is it?
Absolutely. Now it's actually a 9 months plan at this stage.
Yeah.
I've got a very dedicated timeline. March 2023 is a big milestone for me. So what I'm doing, I'm disrupting myself with the book, because I've seen already quite a few, not copies, but I would say inspired similar products to what I'm offering based on the content I put out there. And that's normal. Like, this is why we put knowledge out there. And also as an entrepreneur, we've got all the time ideas. So it doesn't worry me. It actually validates the idea that it resonates. Now, what I'm doing, I'm disrupting myself and digitizing this knowledge into licensing products. So it is for the B2C and for the B2B market. Coaches and consultants who are working already with their companies, they are always looking for new content. They are always looking for ways to add more value, but at the same time, also adding some more profit to their bottom line. With a licensed product, in the second they sell it to their companies, consultants, external facing advisors, they make money and can upsell their coaching to the companies. And at the same time, companies, especially outward facing companies, anything from consultants to lawyers to accountants to tech advisors, whoever is client facing, they can use the idea, the concept themselves by purchasing the license directly or through the HR team. So this is the next iteration of the Trusted Authority and my IP, and who knows what's next.
Yeah, that's awesome. That'll be really exciting to see how that plays out for you. One thing I do want to ask, just as everything's progressing, and obviously you've come such a far way from where you started, I always like to know if there's something that you wished you knew sooner that you would tell yourself when you were starting this whole journey.
Oh, so much. As I said, I come from a very old-fashioned entrepreneurial world where it's all about working hard and then you get to the next stage. And that worked obviously in the 50s and 60s and up to the 80s. But now with technology, we can't think linear anymore. We need to think exponentially. This is also why I want to leverage technology to reach a much wider audience and not make the business depending on what I'm doing, but enabling the platforms to connect supply and demand with each other, basically. Finding people who think way bigger than you is one of the biggest gifts that you can give yourself. I tried my first mastermind within 6 months of leaving my corporate job, and I was terrified with this investment. It was 10,000 US back then, so it's about 14,000 Australian dollars. And I had sweat attacks. Like, I thought, I'll never make this back. I made the biggest mistake. And, I made the money back within the first 8 weeks of joining the course, simply because expanding the thinking, looking at the problem from a different angle. And also what they taught me is normalizing it. So when you want to get fit, what do? You hang out with the fittest people and you get to the gym at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when the hardcore people are there. Not when the pensioners do their coffee chat stretching session for 3 minutes. So simply normalizing it. And, my mastermind that I had back then, it was all about how can you make to the 10K monthly reoccurring. That was a big milestone. But then we had other people in the group that said, I had my worst months ever. We only made 523,000. I don't know what's wrong with us. And I'm like, Okay. Like at this stage, I didn't have my 10K months. I was like, how can you even think that big and think that's a bad result? But then the more you get exposed to those kind of thinking and numbers, the more you get normal with that. And this is what, the power of a high level thinking community is all about. So investing in yourself is the best investment because it guarantees you return on investment.
Yeah. It's so true, the people you hang out with. And that's why I'm like loving doing this podcast, because I'm able to talk with people like you and hear these stories and normalize it where it makes more sense. And you're able to just mentally visualize what that future looks like. So with these clients that you have, you said you're leveraging technology to help these people make that passive income. Have there been any sort of obstacles within that you've noticed with your clients to get them to that next level that they're trying to achieve?
All the time. Change it's hard, because we put our value, our worth, and our identity in the title or what we've done so far to get to this stage. Now, taking on the next level of identity, not knowing what it could be, that puts us in the danger zone, and our brain hasn't caught up with 2022 and technology and where we are right now. So we always revert back to what we know. It doesn't mean that we're happy, but we are safe. If you think of the Maslow hierarchy, this is where I would say 90% of people get stuck in a safety zone. They've got an okay job and it doesn't pay that bad. Like, we are justifying a really bad situation because we hate it. We put on weight, we are stressed, we fight with our partner all the time because it keeps us safe. So we'd rather be safe than happy. So not working with a coach with an external perspective on a big change to get to this next stage, I think it's impossible. I don't know how people can do it. I mean, there definitely would be exceptions. I haven't come across anyone, but it's simply challenging. So why is that? What is actually about this change that scares you so much, that you are so against? And when you put logic to emotions, you often even think for yourself, that's actually totally unjustified, or yes, this is the issue, but this is how I could address it. And simply this talking out loud makes so much more sense. And as I said before, often even in our head, our ideas are incredible and everyone will jump on it. And then we say it out loud and either we feel a bit awkward, it didn't quite come out as you thought about it, or the other person just looks at you, has no idea what you're talking about. So challenging the status quo by, going deep. And I didn't understand for the longest time what holding space means, because I thought it's such a fluffy term, same with the values. What it means is, how can you stay in this uncomfortable state where you feel this, a little bit longer? Not saying anything, giving some space, because we are primed to always find the answer to the question that we are asking. And this is what creates this aha moments, because you literally shift your entire belief system that creates then different actions, and with different actions we get different results. But allowing this space, allowing this uncomfortableness, and enabling the really uncomfortable conversations, this is what is groundbreaking. And this is why coaching is so expensive, because it works, but it's not Larifari and always very comfortable and high-fiving each other. It isn't. There are tears, there's anger, every emotion comes in and out, but this is exactly what moves us to wherever next stage we want to get to.
Yep, exactly. And it always starts with ourselves. Like, I'm a firm believer that if there is that roadblock or something, and like you said, it's almost like a little bit of, to me, it thinks of like a self-sabotage where it's like, this is the safe area. I rather stay here than want to grow and do more. So I find that really interesting to hear it from you, that it is true. Like, it really does come from us uncovering ourselves. And sometimes we need that other perspective, even if it costs $10,000 at a mastermind to get that perspective. But I'm glad
Absolutely.
it all. Yeah.
And there's this saying, if you pay attention. Like, if I would have gotten it for free, I would log in a couple of times and think, oh, it's a waste of time, because I wasn't invested, and nobody can force you to change. But if you say, what, that actually hurts this investment, I'm going to make this work. You put everything into making it work and committing to yourself. And not investing in yourself only means that you're not trusting yourself that you can make it work. But every single time when push comes to shove, we find ways. Like, I was in a very cushy job and I started my business 2 years prior to actually doing it. I just moonlighted, but I didn't have the urgency to make it work because I had a really good income. I had, a good life. But all of a sudden, when things change, you find ways to make it work. So it's just a question, how badly do you really want it? And even working with a coach in the early stages to identify that is not the right time and why, and creating your big motivation behind the next stage, what comes, because going into running your own business and entrepreneurship is the worst and best roller coaster that you can ever get on. It's the highest highs and the lowest lows in literally the same minute, and you cannot prepare for it. And I would also say there's never the best time. There's never a good time even, but there's also never the worst time. So it's getting support early on, surrounding yourself with people who are where you want to be and not taking advice from people who are on the sidelines, on the bench seats, because it's always easier to criticize than to create and to put yourself into the ring and actually do the doing and fight the good fight.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, just kind of the fully believing in yourself. If you don't have that backup plan, or you're kind of like, I would need to make this work, and mentally think of like, this is going to work, you're just really setting yourself up for success, because you're actually fully believing in what you're offering and knowing where it's going to go. So,
and unfortunately, so many of our friends and families, they want the best for us. They want to keep us safe. And they're questioning, oh, should you really do it? But why would you leave such a good job? It's the best company you work for. So we are doubting our own ideas, like, oh, they're probably right. And this crab analogy, when you put 3 crabs in a pot and one crab tries to get out of this pot, the others actually pull it down. And it's the same happens in our own environment. When people say, oh, you with your ideas, your head is always in the clouds. Or a friend of mine actually said to me the other day, when you talk what you did in a week, I feel really bad about myself, what I didn't do. And for a second, I felt really awful to tell him what I've done. But then I thought, why should I lower my expectations and my standards to make somebody else feel good about themselves? Not everyone's got the same aspirations. And this is why it's so important to find a community outside your friend circle or family that push you into this new direction, because otherwise you're staying where it's comfortable, where everyone is happy with you and where you are, and you never want to push yourself in this really uncomfortable state.
Yeah, that's so powerful, actually, because it is so true. And I think everyone can relate to that, no matter if they're a business owner or they're into sports or anything. But like when you have those big aspirations or you are growing, and then the people that you're leaving behind kind of can be really painful to do that, right? It can be hard to kind of cut yourself off. But when you know that it's necessary for your own goals and your aspirations, like it's just a part of that process. So I think that's definitely really key as well.
Yes. And, even just exploring, what are you interested in? What is it that you want to learn more about? How can you bring this new knowledge or insights into your own business or your profession? Like currently I'm studying quantum physics and quantum computing. I'm fascinated by it. Same with NFTs, because it is the future. Do I understand all of it? God, no. But I'm trying every single day to do half an hour proactive learning on it, to see what could I implement, what could I learn from it. So not only does it keep you ahead of the curve in your own business, but you also get exposed to a completely different thinking. Singularity University, I'm currently obsessed with all their talks, and they're talking about aging is a thing of the past. There is so much technology already out there that we as the normal folk wouldn't be exposed to if we're not proactively seeking out this information. But everyone's got access to every single piece of information that we want to for free. It's just a matter of dedicating time and binging Netflix for a couple of hours to watching a TEDx talk or to watch a workshop, for example, on YouTube. We've got the access. It's just a matter of prioritizing, learning, and continuing investing in yourself over what's cushy, what's safe, what's easy to do. Yeah,
exactly. I love this conversation because everything you're saying, I'm just like, absolutely, yes, this is so spot on. Yeah, like I find also, even if you're learning about quantum physics, and I find that so fascinating because I'm reading this book where it's talking a lot about the discovery of that whole world that we really don't know much about. And it's just interesting when you're working your brain, how I find new ideas come up because you're actually stimulating it. It doesn't necessarily have to be stimulated with something about business or your exact specific niche, but it can be super broad, like what you're doing. And I find that super cool that you're able to exercise and keep growing. And it's just, it's all gonna, I think, like, just the momentum gets built into all areas of your life, your business included.
Absolutely. And what you do is spot on. You are talking to different people from different industries and professions. So even that sparks ideas. Oh, this works here. And this is, what's called lateral thinking. And I always say my first career in brand and product marketing, I was responsible to develop new products in the fast moving consumer goods industry. So not as glamorous, but I loved it. I thought it's my life. I love to see a product coming to life, getting into a shelf in Coles and Woolworth or, in supermarkets. And what I did, it was always lateral thinking. What works in one industry or category, and why, and how can we leverage that insight? Currently I'm exploring the world of education because it hasn't obviously caught up to where we need to be. And then looking at industries that perform well, like look at Netflix or Stan, any streamlining industries or products, they work because they're personalizable, they're very customized. It's cheap, it's accessible for everyone, and you can create your own path. And it's entertaining also. It's short, or it can be as short or as long as you want it to be. If we can create that binge watching and committing to watching it to education, that would be spot on, rather than sitting in a university for 4 years and by the time you graduate everything is already outdated anyway. How can we condense that? How can we make it more personalized to what you are interested in, creating micro credentials around it? And virtual reality, I think the education sector is definitely due for a shakeup.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting of a concept. I didn't really think about the idea of just everything getting outdated by the time you're done your actual education. So if it could be more customizable and molded for your own skills or your own passions, like that would be very cool. Definitely a lot of things for people to think about with your questions that you're asking that we should be really asking ourselves. I think it gives everyone a good starting point of things that they could start, asking themselves after hearing from you. So with that being said, if there's people listening that want to learn more from you or they want to connect with you, where can they find you?
I always live on LinkedIn, Petra Zink, but also on my website, impaCCCt.com/freebies. I've got guides how to go from being the technical expert and usually the best kept secret to become the trusted authority in your industry, how to build your brand simply by asking you different questions. How do you want to show up? What conversation do you want to lead? And also how to leverage LinkedIn the best way, because in the end, LinkedIn is still the platform that has the highest level of credibility in the eyes of Google. So it also impacts your overall search results. So how can you create your own reputation based on what you want to be known for, not just now, but in a year, in 5 years, and in your life?
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you on behalf of myself for your time and sharing your wisdom with us. This has been a really good conversation. And I hope people that are feeling aligned with your messages and they feel like that they are someone that would want to work with you, that hopefully they will reach out and really understand their personal brand and show up in the best way that they can for their work and their life.
Thank you so much. Excellent questions. And please keep doing what you're doing because you're doing it incredibly well.
Thank you.